Good morning. It's Tracy at Ket's Books again. We're still in lockdown, and this is Books at Lunchtime. I'm going to be talking today about books that you might want to give to probably an 11-year-old child. A year 6 is a good age, and this is one of the books we always recommend. Is this one. If you've spent any time in Ket's Books, you've probably had this book put in your hand. And this is Kick by Mitch Johnson. And we had Mitch come to a book event a few years ago, and he's here now. We've got him with us. Good morning, Mitch. Can you
Hello.
thank you for joining us. This is really exciting to have the author of this book with us. Do you want to tell us about Kick? I mean, why should I do it if you can?
Yeah, sure. So Kick is a story that I wrote probably about 4 or 5 years ago now, or had the idea for 4 or 5 years ago. And the original idea came when I was working in a sports shop, and I'd gone to the stock room to find a customer a pair of football boots. And while I was checking that the boots were both in the box, I came across a piece of rubbish, and that was an energy gel sachet. And at the time, I didn't really think too much about it. I kind of put it in the bin and went back out to serve the customer. But it was something that kept playing on my mind, because that piece of rubbish kind of connected me with the person who had made those football boots. And that piece of rubbish was an energy gel sachet. And so that kind of suggested that whoever was doing this job was working very hard, because normally it's people like athletes, people who are expending a lot of energy that consume those kind of products. And also the fact that it was with the boots suggested that they were actually eating on the job as well, so they weren't really getting enough break time. And so I started to look into how things are made, and the more I learned about fast fashion and the sweatshop industry, the more I kind of came to realize that there was a story that wasn't really being told. And there was this issue that implicates all of us, really, because we all buy things, we all use stuff, and we don't really have much idea of where it comes from or who's making it. So I set out to kind of write a book that would hopefully shed light on this issue, and the result of that was Kick. And Kick follows an Indonesian boy called Budi, who works in a factory in appalling conditions, but he dreams of becoming a footballer. And this is something that kind of a dream that he sustains throughout the book, no matter how difficult life gets. He gets on the wrong side of a local gangster, and who makes his life very complicated, who gives him kind of ultimatums to either steal from the factory or to lose his family. So there's quite a lot at stake in Kick. But hopefully it's a book that does introduce readers to another culture, and to the kind of darker side of an industry that we'll all have some experience of as consumers, but we'll have kind of very limited experience of in terms of looking at how things are actually produced and made. So that's Kick. I've got a new book coming out in February, which is called Pop, and I have an exciting advanced copy of it here. You can see that it's
Wow.
got this lovely shiny foil effect on the cover and sprayed edges, and the designer at Hachette and the artist Alice Brereton has done a really, really good job of making it stand out. And Pop is similar in some respects. I'm kind of tackling the darker side of an industry that we're probably all familiar with. So in Pop, the story follows a girl called Queenie who finds the missing recipe to the world's most popular soft drink. And the corporation who have lost this recipe will stop at nothing to get it back. And so Queenie is chased across America by black ops helicopters and conspiracy theorists and bounty hunters. And she meets all kind of oddballs and eccentrics on her journey across America, trying to keep this recipe out of the hands of the dastardly corporation that produced this fizzy drink, in the hope that she might be able to make the world a better and less polluted place. So it's another book with a kind of moral message at its core, this time looking more at environmentalism rather than the kind of humanitarian impact of big businesses. But hopefully when that comes out in February, it will be met with a similar success, and will be another book at Cats that is recommended to everyone who comes in through the door.
Well, yes, I mean, I was lucky enough to get hold of a preview copy, and I think it's going to be every bit as successful and probably more challenging than Kick, because, okay, so when you went to Robert Kett's school with us, you did that brilliant discussion where you had each of the children check the inside of their jumper to see where it had been made, and you had the map, and we realized that most of the jumpers had come from one part of the globe, and then you had a conversation about why that was. And actually, it's the first time I've seen 300 children actually leaping out of their seats during an assembly with excitement. So that was really good, and that it did get them thinking about just consumerism and the impact they have on the world, and how it's not actually very, it's difficult to be ethical, isn't it? But in the pop, it's much closer to home, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the main difference will be that it's tackling an issue that most people will have fairly advanced awareness of now, which is plastic pollution and climate change. And what's interesting is when I started researching and planning the book, Greta Thunberg wasn't a household name, and Blue Planet 2 hadn't come out, and David Attenborough hadn't introduced lots of viewers to the problem of plastic pollution in the oceans. And so as I've been writing it, I've kind of seen this awareness grow. And it should have actually come out earlier this year. If it hadn't been for the pandemic, it would have been out in July, but things have been delayed because of that. So I think it can be interesting to see how people respond to it, because it's such a big issue, and such a visible issue as well. You don't have to walk far from wherever you live, wherever you are on planet Earth, to find plastic rubbish.
No.
And so I'm hoping that it will be a way into the issue for lots of children who are kind of socially minded and are kind of potential activists. And we're seeing that the people who go out and march and protest are people in kind of younger demographics now. It's kind of, the onus has drifted from adults to kind of university students, kind of through high school, and is actually people in primary school taking parts in climate strikes, and when they're allowed to, are going on marches to demand change. So I'm hoping that it will be a book that allows them to explore that interest.
Absolutely. It absolutely will. And I also took quite a lot out of it about the badness of big business. But I suppose I'm always looking for the independent bookshop's corner on things. But when it's not giving anything away for the board of directors at the fizzy drinks company to be measuring their market success by how much of the pollution in the how much market share of the pollution is their fault, and they're only 49% of the pollution, and they need to be at least 51%. Outrageous, and probably not that far off.
I think big businesses seem to be really good at two things, and they are making money and destroying the planet. And so you get to a point where you think, is this actually one of their priorities, especially if they're an industry that would benefit from some form of climate change or environmental disruption? Is it something that they would necessarily hold back from, or would they actually encourage it? It's quite a simple view, but I think we're getting to a point where we have to ask quite difficult questions of the way we do things, especially when they're so obviously unsustainable. But I'm confident that children will respond really well to this kind of book, because they just seem so much more engaged with tackling problems. I don't know if it's when you get to adulthood, you've just heard about so many different issues that you get a little bit saturated, and therefore you kind of feel a bit helpless, and like you can't really make a difference. But children still have that optimism, that enthusiasm for change. So hopefully it will be more by kind of younger.
I'm going to just pause us just for 1 second. Sorry, we're back. The shop is closed for browsing, but we do have customers coming to the door for click and collect. So there was a question that they couldn't answer. So a pop is extremely exciting, and it even has a crocodile. And you're going to come and help us talk to schools about pop, aren't you? We're hoping in the new year.
Yeah. I'm soon to be a Wyndham resident, which is it's very exciting. I'm looking forward to moving out to Wyndham. But yes, hopefully, restrictions permitting, we'll be able to visit some schools in the new year to talk about pop. I'm in the process of building an event as well, and I quite like this stage because there are so many different activities and games and areas and subjects you can explore when you go and talk about the book, because it's a chance to reveal a bit more of the research that you couldn't include in the book, kind of really interesting things you found out that just you couldn't work in without the book getting a little bit messy. So it'd be good to go and talk about the book with kids. And again, like you said, with the events with Kick that we've done in the past, it's a really good way of just infusing children about a book and about a subject as well, which hopefully they'll go away and explore kind of in their own time.
And I love this because it's environmentally conscious. It's endorsed by Amnesty International. It's got football, and it's just a good story. So for whatever children didn't pick up on it first time around because they were too young, really, because it is a book for year sixes, and it's actually a really good book for parents to read alongside so they can have the conversations, is what I usually say. This is a really solid choice. But if children have read this and they can't read pop yet, what do you recommend that we give them to read right now? What are you enjoying?
So a book I've just read that I've really enjoyed and is getting a lot of praise and being recognized by lots of awards is a book called Bearmouth by Liz Hyder. That's for slightly, you got a copy of that, excellent. It's for slightly older readers, so I'd say that's probably, if you're in secondary school, kind of year 7 upwards, I would suggest. But it's written in this kind of phonetic style of it's written by a boy who works and lives down a mine, and he's learning to write, and so this is kind of his diary of the events that take place in this mine, and essentially he's questioning the story he's been told about why they work there and why things are the way they are. He meets a kind of new friend who's recently joined the rest of the miners, who makes lots of kind of blasphemous and radical suggestions that maybe things aren't the way they are because they've been designed that way, but actually because it benefits a kind of a small group of greedy people who own the mine. But it's really it's the style in which it's written is really unusual, and I didn't actually find that was jarring at all. It kind of reads very naturally because it's kind of the way things are spelt, and so you kind of just read through it and you can very quickly become kind of at one with the character. And I just think it's so atmospheric, it's claustrophobic, and it's got a really good message behind it as well. So I think for slightly older readers, like if you're kind of a young teen, that kind of age, then it would be really, really good to read that one. For slightly younger readers, so people who maybe at the age where they might be reading a book like Kick, I'm currently reading Hollowpox, which is the 3rd installment in Jessica Townsend's Nevermore series, which is a really brilliant series. It's been tipped for a while to be the kind of the successor to Harry Potter's crown in terms of kind of fantasy series for younger readers. And that follows a girl called Morgan Crow who starts out believing that she's cursed and finds her way into this elite society for gifted and talented members of Nevermorian society. It's very imaginative. It is full of kind of zany characters. It's got lots of humor in it, and it's just a really good, quite cozy adventure. The 3rd installment, Holobox, is actually coincidentally quite timely because it's about a mystery illness that is making its way through Nevermore. So if you're not completely sick of the pandemic and you fancy a fictional twist on it, then maybe read that. But yeah, the Nevermore series I think is brilliant. I think, I might be wrong, I think there are supposed to be 9 in the series in total, and we're at book 3 now. So
Well,
just,
now's a good time to get in on it then, isn't
yeah,
it?
yeah. If you're looking for something that will kind of you can pick up and read along with. I know when I was younger, I was in my teens, or slightly younger, and heading into my teens when Harry Potter was being written. So I was kind of one of those people that had to wait another year or two for the next book to come out, and then devour it in a weekend, and then have to wait another 2 years for the next monster book to come out. And that's quite a nice experience. I think children who read Harry Potter now obviously have just got them all there waiting for them, but there's something really nice about being made to wait and to get excited about the next installment, which no one has read yet, and no one knows how the story progresses. So that's another book that I would really recommend, because I'm at the moment doing it.
Have you taken the dust jacket off it and looked at the inside?
I actually have a proof copy, because it's published by the same publisher as Pot. But yes, each of the installments in hardback have this beautiful kind of gold foil detail underneath. They're really nicely packaged, and
this is what you see, and this is what you get. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's a nice book. But obviously, I'll have to then go out and buy it when I've read it. I've got the proof copy, and then I'll have to go and get it.
You know a bookshop that has a copy. So just for anyone watching, it is only available in hardback at the moment, and it is £12.99, but you get quite a lot of value for your money, clearly, on that. It's beautifully produced.
If you haven't read those two, they're in paperback now, so you can pick those up. And
you can start with those two, can't you? And they are beautiful as well, but just in a different way. So they've got shiny bits on them as well. The first one is
Nevermore is the first, and then Wondersmith is the sequel to Nevermore, the second book.
Right. Okay. Brilliant. Did you have any other books you wanted to tell us about?
There's another series that I've got into this year, and the second installment came out in September, so that's fairly new. And those are the Adventures on Trains series.
Yes, M.G. Leonard.
M.G. Leonard and Sam Sedgman working together on those.
And she wrote Beetle Boy, didn't she?
Did, yes. Which are also really good. So yeah, if you enjoy Beetle Boy and want more from M.G. Leonard, she's partnered up with Sam Sedgman to create Adventures on Trains, which essentially takes the form of a crime occurs on a long distance train journey. The first one is called the Highland Falcon Thief, which says an expensive item of jewelry is stolen, and you kind of have to work out who on the train did it. The second one is Kidnap on the California Comet, which as you might imagine is someone getting kidnapped on a train that's headed for California. What I really like about them is that the characters, I think I'm quite bad at this generally, but they're quite satisfying, quite infuriating, because I can't guess who's done it. In both books I got it wildly wrong, which, like I say, is you kind of kicking yourself that you didn't spot it, spot the clues on the way through, but also you're quite satisfied that you were deceived by some kind of skillful writing. But those are really good fun too, especially if you're kind of, maybe you like crime fiction or trains. I think Sam Sedgman is the main researcher. I think he's really into his trains, and so there's lots of detail, and there's also loads of illustrations throughout them as well, which really bring it to life too. So that's another series that I would heartily recommend.
I think that's a really good recommendation. I heard the pair of them speak shortly before the Highland Falcon Thief was published, and they said that it stands up to the scrutiny of real train spotters, people who know their stuff about trains, that they've read them and it passes their test. And she's just got such a great imagination, and he clearly knows what he's doing. I like as well that these have a boy traveling with his eccentric uncle, because a lot of the crime fiction for that age seems to be around girls who are solving crimes. So I quite liked that. Yeah,
and the characters they meet on these trains are really quite varied and interesting and eccentric, and they all have a motive for committing the crime, it seems, which is of course part of the way that you build the mystery in these stories. But like I say, but I failed twice. The next one is out next year. I believe I've got at least another book in the series, hopefully more. I think the next one is set in South Africa, I think, which is coming out next year. So I'm hoping that I do better next year, but probably not.
Right, so that's plenty to keep the kids going between Kick and Pop. So that's brilliant, and we will be seeing more of you in the new year. So thank you ever so much for joining us.
No, thanks for having me.
Right, okay. Just to say as well, we're doing click and collect 10 till 2, Monday to Saturday. And if you want to order any books, you can ring us on 01953 603 663. Thanks very much for joining us at Books at Lunchtime.